Hello everybody and welcome back to the daily practice with me, Benita. Today's podcast episode is a part of the series on the 8 limbs of yoga as described by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So in the previous weeks we've been going through an outline of each of the other limbs: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, and today we are in Dharana. So this episode, once again, is a perfectly good standalone episode if you just want to look into Dharana or concentration in the yogic path. But if you wish to get a more holistic or complete picture of the 8 limbs of yoga, feel free to go back to listen to all the previous episodes in this series. Okay, so like I said, last week we talked about pratyahara, which is turning inward or withdrawal of the senses. And each of the limbs kind of naturally flow from the previous one, but they are also practices that support one another in a non-linear fashion. So concentration helps with breathing, and breathing helps with concentration, and concentration helps with posture, and good posture supports proper concentration. So it's a non-linear, mutually supportive way to achieve yoga or union with your highest self or the divine, or however you want to conceptualize it. And truly, this is the first of the so-called inner practices that prepare for a deep meditation and the eventual union and kind of, how do I say, merging into the all or becoming one with all of creation through the practice of yoga, and final limb being samadhi. We're going to look at that in a few weeks. So what exactly is said about Dharana in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras? It is in Yoga Sutra 3.1. It says, Desa bandha chittasya dharana. Concentration is the binding of the mind to one place, object, or idea. So as we can remember from previous weeks, is that one of the key things that is said about yoga by Patanjali is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. So yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. So it's chitta is the mind. And once again, in concentration, we bind the mind to one singular place, object, or idea. So dharana is training the mind to hold focused attention without any scattering. So really it is a key, like non-negotiable step towards samadhi and towards the ultimate goal of yoga. And this is so important in today's world, where often our mind is so scattered due to, there's multiple things going on all at once, especially if you live in an urban environment. There might be advertisement, this or that, or our social media consumption, and maybe there's a big screen, small screen, and then your kid is over there, and okay, you got to attend to dinner, and everything is kind of all over the place. So dharana is such a valuable tool and valuable practice in today's world, where our focus and attention tends to be robbed by everything that's around us. So, and I've always liked to, in these episodes, also refer to how it contrasts or has parallels with Christianity. So we can look at Christian prayer practices like the Rosary practice or Lectio Divina that encourage repetition and focus. So both in the yogic tradition and Christianity, it is understood that repetition quiets distraction and brings the mind toward God or source. we could see there a slight difference, whereas Christianity frames concentration as devotion to the divine or to a saint, I guess in some cases in Catholicism or Orthodox Christianity, while yoga often frames it as a preparation for meditation. But I would also argue that in yogic practices too, we have the puja, or there is like a devotion or some kind of like offering to deities or to the divine, and really many of my teachers would always refer to as a repetition of a mantra, focusing on a mantra, having this strong focus, dharana, on the breath or on a mantra or anything else that is really focusing on the divine, and that keeps our mind away from any other so-called unholy thoughts, that it's actually a devotional practice too. So what kind of practices count as dharana? Okay, so I just finished my Ashtanga yoga posture practice, and in that too, of course, we practice dharana. I'm doing my best to make it as much of a moving meditation as possible, and keeping my focus on the practice. So that is like a single focus is my physical posture, my breath, and just focusing on that. But beyond the mat, there's a really beautiful and I guess very recommended practice called a trataka, which is a single point focus in practice, is candle gazing. So you can simply light a candle, maybe set a timer for a few minutes, 5, 10, whatever is available to you, and just keep your gaze, keep your eyes on the candle. And that's it. That's really the practice. And another alternative, of course, is repeating a mantra. So for a mantra practice, I find that what's really useful is to stick to one mantra for any given period of time. So it could be short, could be long, could be a more complex mantra. For some time, for instance, I was working with the Ganesha mantra, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, or Om Namaha Shivaya, and just focusing on those words. This could also be an affirmation if you prefer to do this in your own language. It's of course also possible, and might be effective, but there is something special about the Sanskrit language, as is in the language of Gurmukhi, which is used in Kundalini yoga. And I would say that there are certain other languages that have the same kind of coherence, and the actual what's the word? There is the equivalence of the tone and the sound of each word and the meaning of the word. So the vibrational frequency of the sound is equivalent in Sanskrit, Gurmukhi, I'd say Hebrew, and Old Japanese. There is something special about those languages where the actual sound of the word is equal in vibrational frequency to the meaning of the word. So there might be something more powerful about doing our mantra practice in those languages, but that's, again, it's a whole topic on its own. I could dive into a whole episode about that. But what I would really recommend is to, find a mantra to work with and stick to that same mantra for a given period of time for your dharana practice. So simply repeating a mantra to yourself, silently or vocally, and letting your single pointed focus rest on that phrase or mantra. Of course, dharana can be less formal too. So like I mentioned last week, this is also very similar and can be complementary and integrated with the pratyahara practice that I recommended last week of actually leaving your phone out, whether it's you having dinner with your family or if you're reading or anything, just turning your phone off and like allowing yourself to be focused on the task at hand, whether that's doing the dishes maybe or reading a book or maybe even you're doing whether it's a yoga practice or a physical workout at the gym, or outdoors, see if you can do that without music and actually just be focused on whatever you're doing at the moment without getting distracted by the phone, music, other conversations that are happening or anything else. Just a really singular focus to whatever you're doing at that moment. This could also include writing or whatever you're producing or making, or even if you're folding laundry. Can you just be really, really, really present and focused on just that? And this is kind of a Zen approach to life, just doing one thing at a time, and which is interesting because I will also talk about this next week, I'm sure, that dhyana and Zen are actually the same word. So the Zen Buddhist tradition that is, I guess, prevalent in Japan or so actually comes from this yogic practice of dhyana, of deep meditation. So Zen and dhyana are actually from the same root word. Yes. And of course, when we do our meditation practice, or even if you're not doing your formal seated meditation, can you just be really present with your breath? Can you, as you're sitting, maybe you're waiting for the eggs to cook, or maybe you're waiting for a ride or the next wave if you're surfing, whatever it is, can you just focus on one point? Can you focus on the sensation of the air in your nostrils? Can you? Or as you're going for a walk, can you really notice how each step, what's the sensation of each step on your feet as you walk? And once again, I'd like to a little bit have a conversation also from the scientific point of view, why this is relevant to today. Like I mentioned earlier, we are living in this attention economy where it's basically built on distraction. Like, one thing is money, but like the way big corporations and such online especially make money is based on clicks and as a result eyeballs, attention economy. Like, that's really all that matters. And this is also a really useful thing to remember, is that if a product is free, then you're actually the product. Your data and your attention, your focused attention, is what is the most valuable thing in today's economy and also in your life. Because, like we know, whatever you focus on grows, and you are actually, through giving your focused attention, giving your eyes, ears, your physical presence to something, you are actually increasing the reality of that thing. Like, you are making it more so. So giving focused attention to yourself, to your practice, to your family, to your children, to your food, to your environment is so much more important than giving your eyeballs to, I don't know, some random conversation that's going on Twitter, or you know, giving your attention to, I don't know, comparing your life to somebody else's on Instagram or something like that. So really, Dharana is such an important practice, especially in today's world where our attention is being monetized and is being actively, these applications, our phones, technology, everything is trying to rob you of your time and attention. So truly, as much as possible, do these practices to reclaim your focus and attention. And there's so much to be gained from that, not just for you personally, but the gifts that you bring into this world are multiplied if you are able to reclaim your attention and actually put it to practice first through these yogic practices that I'm describing, but then also allowing that to bloom and allowing your focused attention to create something beautiful in this world, not just for yourself, like I said, but also for everybody else. So really, Dharana practices on I guess neurological level benefit us in multiple ways, but I guess fundamentally it's improved memory, lower stress, and like I said, greater productivity. So the more we're able to focus on one thing at a time, that's really the superpower of today in a world where attention span is lower and lower, and we're more and more distracted, and little sound bites, little this, little that, and we're not able to really harness our true potential when we're so scattered. And like I mentioned, neuroscience does back this, where it is shown that concentration, focus builds new neural pathways, and these meditative practices really begin with sustained focus, and from there, almost anything is possible. So, there we go. Once again, this was just a short outline on what the practice of Dharana is and can be in both our formal yogic or meditation practice, but also in our daily lives, and why it is so important. So we could call Dharana like the art of attention and focus. So really, I invite each and every one of you to try to reclaim your focus and attention, whether it's just being able to sit quietly and have your coffee without any external input, any extra stimulation. So just sitting there, taking a sip of your hot beverage and really noticing how that feels, and as the cup touches your lips, and what are the sensations and the taste that you're experiencing there. And yeah, I guess that was it for this week. Next week, we're gonna, like I mentioned, focus on dhyana, which is then flowing naturally from dharana, so dharana concentration. Then we get to the actual meditation and actual, I guess, application of all the previous limbs. But like I said, it's not necessarily a linear path. We are doing these in order, but these are all mutually supportive practices that combine to create the 8 limbs of yoga. So it's not necessarily steps on a path, but there are 8 limbs that are mutually supportive and that are all practiced at the same time. And yeah, once again, these podcast episodes drop each Monday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And my short practice videos are online on YouTube each Friday at 7 a.m. And I have been enjoying being consistent with those. Once again, I had a couple of weeks where I was traveling, so there was 1 week, I guess went missing. But now we're back on track, and I am excited to keep going deeper into the practices and finding more ways to be of benefit through these channels. And I've been less active on Twitter or X, just because I find that is robbing me of my attention and time. So I am preferring to channel more of that time and energy I was spending on trying to kind of get engagement or whatever on X, to actually be producing more longer form content like this, as well as I'm actually starting to, again, teach in-person classes where I'm living. So that's also taking some of my time and focus a little bit. But yeah, nonetheless, thanks so much for listening. And please do share, subscribe, and like these videos wherever you're listening. And of course, if you're on YouTube, please leave a comment. Let me know where you're listening from. And also, if there's anything else you would like to hear about in these broadcasts. I guess that's all. And I am so happy to have connected with you once again. And remember, as always, a good practice is the one you do.